photography. Cinematography is the art. So, if we shoot somebody entering a room and walking in and sitting down, and I'll pick some people. Who wants to be a person who enters a room and sits down? All right, there you go. You go out, you get to sit at the table. You sit at the table.
Sit at the table?
Yep. Yep, you're going to enter from there. Yep, sit here. So let's say we have a scene where somebody's going to walk in and sit down and join this person and say hello, right? And this is probably the way most of you would shoot it, right? So come on in and sit down and say hello and pull out a chair. All right, why is this a terrible shot? Very good, right? So, the first thing we do is, do we move the camera? No. We choreograph everything to the camera. It is not a documentary. Just because that's where the chair is doesn't mean that's where we're going to put the chair. Stand up, my friend. Have a seat. We choreograph everything to the lens. We do not move the lens for the choreography. That is the difference between documentary and cinematography. In documentary, you can't control anything. In sports, you can't control anything. You got to run around with the camera. In reality TV, you got to move around and find the shot, right? In cinematography, where you are creating the image, you create the image. You don't let the image create you. You are not a slave to where the actors walk. The actors are a slave to the lens. And all professional actors know this. And I've worked with some of the top actors. And they all know this. And they say, am I in the shot? Where do you want me? We have something called marks. How many of you ever worked in theater? You know what marks are? Put a little piece of tape on the floor. In a professional movie, TV show, commercial, streaming TV show, everybody gets marks. And it's the second camera assistant's job to put the marks down. And she or he has on their belt 7 or 8 different colors tape. Every actor gets a different color. So he would get blue, she would get pink. You know, another actress comes in, she would get red. Another actor comes in, he would get green. The actors memorize their colors. When they walk on set, they go, oh, I walk here, then I walk here, then I walk here. You ever watch television or TV shows or movies? Watch how many times you see an actor do this. They're looking at their mark. They walk up and they go, you know, Susan, because they wanted to hit their mark. The other thing we do is if somebody is running, you ever hear of a sandbag? You know what a sandbag is, right? If we have somebody who's running into a room or coming in very fast and we know they can't see their mark, we put a sandbag down so they can run right up and put their foot on it. Boom. And they hit their exact spot they need to be. Professional actors hit that spot over and over and over. It is not uncommon to do 7 to 14 takes of the same shot. I know your high school kids, I have this problem with the college kids. You do a shot, oh, that's good enough, let's go. No, do it at least 3 times. At least 3 times. And rehearse it at least 3 times before you ever touch the record button. Filming takes time. Anything worth doing takes time. So rehearse it. So we had him walk in and sit down. Now we're going to look at it again. Go ahead, come back in. You're going to operate. Tilt up a lot. There you go. All right, ready? And enter. Zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, 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 out. Keep going, zoom, 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 and stop. All right, when the actor stops, the camera has to stop. So you've got to stop when he stops. Here, I'll show you. Right, let's do it again. Ready? And enter. So, while this is an okay shot, it's still a shitty shot. The reason is, it's too high up. When he sits down, I'm looking down at everybody, right? There's a tendency with young people to try and do everything from eye level. That's not cinematography. The reason why we have a camera is so we can put it in places that you normally don't see. That's more interesting. So it's going to be much more interesting. Yeah, let's get rid of that. If we think of a more creative way to do him entering and sitting down. I'm going to do this handheld, even though it's better not to do things handheld.
There's a reason we don't use these anymore.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right, cool. Come on in again. All right, come on in. Is that a more interesting shot? Yeah. Right? Don't be cemented to doing things from eye level. It's not a documentary. And even documentaries don't shoot at eye level. Project Runway, they don't shoot at eye level. They have actually hip plates. You put the camera on the hip, and they shoot almost always from the hip. Right? Because if you shoot from the hip, you're at their eye level when they sit. Right? So this could be another angle we want to do it from. Go ahead, let's do it again. And come on in. This is called a dirty shot. The reason why it's called a dirty shot is because her shoulder is in the frame. This is a clean shot. This is a dirty shot. This is called what?
Dirty.
An over the shoulder. Right? An over the shoulder shot is a dirty shot. So, over the shoulder, dirty shot, clean shot. Each of these has a different meaning. They're not just there for variety. Clean shot means we want to only concentrate on what the person is saying, what they're feeling. A dirty shot means we're eavesdropping on a conversation, as if we're across the room, as if we're at the table next to them at a restaurant. We're eavesdropping. We're not part of it. This, we want to feel what he's feeling. This, we want to be an impartial eavesdropping observer. This, we want to feel her, what she responds to him. This shot, an over-the-shoulder shot, is from the point of view of the person whose shoulder you're shooting over. Therefore, you want the audience to identify not with the person talking, but with the person whose shoulder we're looking over. So, if he's saying, "I never want to see you again," this is the shot we want. If he's saying, "Please forgive me," this is the shot we want. Right? So it is the job of the cinematographer and the director to analyze the script and decide at what point do we want what type of shot. When do we want a clean shot? When do we want a dirty shot? When do we want an over-the-shoulder shot? These are not here for random variety of visual interest. These are here to tell different parts of the story. Same thing with the angle. Please forgive me. I'm looking down on him. I don't ever see you again. I'm looking up at him. You all understand that difference between up and down? Right? If I shoot down on somebody, meaning I'm just above their eye line, I'm telling the viewer that they are inferior, weak, or powerless. If I shoot up on somebody, I am telling people that they are in power, in control, or more important than the other person. So this is a very important thing to understand when you're doing a shot. In the movie, oh my God, how could I blank out on it? In many movies, they will start on one angle, and throughout the story, throughout the scene, if it starts here and he's coming in saying, please forgive me, and then later we're going to get her shots, and later she says, I'm never going to forgive you. And he says, that's it, I'm leaving, right? Then we go to the lower angle. We don't keep everything from the same angle. So, variety. If you're going to shoot a scene, you can shoot all his lines this way, all his lines this way, all his lines this way, and now we're done with him, and then we come around and we go the opposite side. And we go to her angle. Her clean, her dirty, her over the shoulder. And when we come over here and we don't like the background, get up, sir, move your chair over there a lot. Have a seat. That is going to cut just fine. There's absolutely no reason to keep them in the same place. All you need to do is keep them in the same relationship. There's also something called the 180-degree line. How many of you know what that is? Cool. 180-degree line is once you have two people in a scene, or one person and a computer screen, or one person and a dog, or whatever, you draw an imaginary line between their noses. All shots have to be from the same side of the line. If I do this shot, and then I do this shot, I've just confused the audience, right? He has to be looking always to his left, well, his right, my left. By the way, and whenever you talk about motions and directions, it's always to the lens. So if I'm shooting him, I would say, move right, which is what? Left. Yes, right? It's camera right and camera left. Forward and back is to the lens. So if I say move forward, it is not moving forward that way. That's not to the lens. It's moving to the lens. Very good. A little more forward. A little more forward. And camera right. Let's move the seat a little. There you go. Right? Don't be afraid to move things. I think that that's one of the biggest problems I find with a lot of students, especially young students, freshmen coming to college, and most of you guys probably, is you think that they're going to come in, sit down, and then you're just going to figure out where to put the camera. Figure out where to put the camera first. So there's something we call block, rehearse, light, shoot. So go back out. So this is the blocking process. He's going to walk in. He's going to sit down. The director works with the actors, figures out the scene. Walk in. Sit down. And as soon as he sits down, she throws the card in his face and storms out. And he cries. There you go. Okay. Good. Cool. So block, we call it block, light, rehearse, shoot. So block it first. After you block it, you then figure out where the cameras are going to go. Now, hopefully, you have thought about this way in advance and understand when you're going to do a wide shot, when you're going to do a close-up, and what we call standard coverage. Standard coverage is shoot it all in a wide, then shoot it all in a medium, then shoot it all in a close-up, then shoot it all in an over-shoulder. And now go reverse and shoot out the other person's point of view. All those same shots. So standard coverage is going to take you time. You're going to work from the wide to the tight, and you're going to work from one side and then shoot the entire thing again from the other side. Now, do you need to do that with every scene? No, you do not. It is between the director and the cinematographer and the assistant director. How many of you understand what an assistant director is? Any of you know? No. Yeah? What's an assistant director? Do you know? No, that's the script supervisor. The assistant director runs the show. The assistant director tells the director when lunch is. They tell the director when they have to go home. They tell the director, I'm sorry, you can't do a 14th take. We have to move on. The assistant director does not work for the director. The assistant director works for the producer. That's who hires them. That's who pays them. Their loyalty is to both the director and the producer. Producer, by the way, can fire the director at any time for any reason. The producer owns the movie, not the director. The producer usually won't fire a director unless they do something really stupid, but generally they've hired a director because they like that director and they like their work. There are very few director-producers. There are some, Steven Spielberg is one, but there aren't that many, probably about a dozen. The other 500, 600, 700 directors that work all the time in the United States are all hired by producers. And there are movies that go through more than one director. Have you heard of a movie called The Wizard of Oz? 5 different directors. Vincent Minnelli is listed as the director. He was not the first director who was fired after before the film started shooting during pre-production. The second director came on. He got fired after they started shooting for a while. Vincent Minnelli came on. He was directing. They loved Vincent Minnelli, but then Vincent Minnelli had to go off because he had to go do reshoots of a different movie. So they hired another director to come in and direct while he was doing reshoots of another movie. Then he came back and he finished the movie. 4, but different directors. It's a great movie. How many of you seen Wizard of Oz? Great movie, right? Right. So, the feature film I was just on, the director was fired during post-production. But anyway, what we want to do is we want to come up with interesting shots. So what I was getting at is that you want to scout the location, you want to plan the shots even before the actors show up. You figure out that, I got somebody walking in here. What are the shots I'm going to want for that? Well, let's go back and he's going to walk in. So you're going to walk in and you're going to hesitate because you're scared to go see her. Ready? Walk in. Hesitate. Let's go back, do it again. Not going to walk until after I tilt up. Okay, ready? Go back out. Walk in. Hesitate. Big exhale. Get nerve up. Walk. Okay, and then we cut. Right, so that's called let the actor leave the frame, or clearing the frame. Right. All right, so now we got that shot. Now we know, again, by the way, the cinematographer and the production manager and the assistant director plan the order of the shots. They talk after they plan the order of the shots, and they approach the director and say, this is the order we want to shoot it today. And the director then says, well, she's going to get really upset. I'd rather have her get really upset before lunch, so let's do the upset scene first. So then they'll talk that through. The reason why the director doesn't get involved with the order in which the things are shot is because the director may not be totally aware of how much trouble it is to do the lighting, or how long they have a location, or any of those other things that the producer and the production manager and the assistant director have all talked about. So what they're trying to do is make it go as fast as possible for the director. They may want to do that shot last, after she's left, after she's gone for the day. We just keep him and we just pay him overtime and not her. Right? There's no reason for her to be here if we're only shooting him walking in the door. Or if we know we got to do that in the morning because he has to leave early, we have her come on a late call. She'll come an hour later or 2 hours later. And we'll have him come in, we'll have him come down, we'll even do the sit down at the chair shot. And we'll have him talk to a paper plate. So he can do his opening shots even before, and we can get the close-up of his nervous hands on the table. We can get another angle of the nervous hands on the table. And then another angle of the nervous hands on the table. We can exhaust how many different types of things we do. Then we can get the close-up of his eye. Right? We can do all of that without her here. We don't need her, right? She's in the way of the camera. So she can come an hour late. We get all of that stuff, then she shows up. Now we do the wide shot that's going to end up getting to her. And we do all of that. And then we go to her shots. And we know if he's got another scene to be in, he's got to go do a costume change or something like that, we can get the scene of her walking out. Go ahead. Before we even turn around and get the other shot, you're going to come this way, sorry. You got to cross in front of the camera.
Cool.
There you go. Cool. Yeah. And he cries. I notice I kept her in the frame. Come on back, do it again. What you don't want to do is this. Ready? Leave. I mean, you could do this, which eliminates her totally. Come on back. These have two different emotions. And leave. What's the difference between those two? Yep.
One kind of shows like the isolation from her leaving that is
Correct. So it has to be a conscious choice that only the director can make. It's not up to the cinematographer, this is the director or the producer. This is totally up to the director. Do I want the audience to feel his pain, or do I want the audience to be on her side? By having her in the frame and leaving, we are on her side. We are telling the audience that we want you to watch her leave. Right? But if we isolate him without her, we are telling the audience we want you to feel only for him and don't care about her. So that's a conscious choice that you're going to make through the cinematography. And again, the director has to be very aware of the scene and how he or she wants this to play to the audience. And there's nothing stopping you from shooting it both ways. There's a saying in the film industry, while we're here. And it's well, while we're here, let's do one where she walks out and she's in the frame. And while we're here, let's do one where she walks out and she's not in the frame. Right? And now he can go to lunch, go get changed. She comes back, have a seat. And we get her looking at him, even though he's not here, and, oh, I can't believe it. And she grabs the card and throws it at him, right? And then leaves, right? And now we're going to do it again. That's all she has to do is go there. So long as she clears frame, get your card again. And now you're going to throw the card right into the camera lens. You didn't hit it. One more time. Try to make it land right in there.
Right into the camera.
Right into the camera. Right? Cut. You don't have to go any further. Think of creative places you can put the camera. Don't be cemented to it being at shoulder height or eye height. Come up with a variety of places you can go. What's another shot we can do in this scenario for her? Under the table.
Because I'm superior, right? Because I'm angry.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you can do one here. The other thing we can do is show her feet get up and leave. Right? So those are all different angles we can get. We can also get the card right before she grabs it. As a cinematographer, I know a lot of editors. And when I first started in the business, the producer I worked with, one of the producers I worked with, I worked for Exxon Corporate Video for years, and I was their director of photography, lighting director, and the producer was the head editor also. We would go we went to a tanker and we had to film safety, how to climb and how to be safe on a tanker and all this other stuff. And we'd shoot stuff and I'd say, all right, we're ready. He goes, no. I'm the editor. Get the close-up of the hand on the railing. Get a close-up of the foot on the railing. Get a close-up, add. And he taught me that my job as a cinematographer is to make sure the editor has something to edit. You're not an editor if you only have one way to edit things. So if you get footage back and there's only this close-up and this wide shot, that's not editing. That's switching. Right? That's all there is. Editing is, where are all your cutaways? The other cutaway we're going to need for this is her mouth when she gets really mad right before she throws the card. She's going to say something and then she holds herself back and doesn't do it. So go ahead. And then she throws the card and leaves. Right? Give yourself, how many of you want to edit? Cool. Your job is to tell any director, any cinematographer, give me cutaways. Repeat after me. Give me cutaways. Right? It's very important to get the cutaways. Yeah.
I would be inclined also to get almost like an overhead shot looking down, so you see both of them facing each other, almost like a line drawn on a battlefield.
That's a great idea. So you get this shot. And this is a perfect shot for throwing the card in his face. Go ahead. So, motion pictures, get the motion. Use tripods. I'm not right now only because it'll take forever to keep moving the tripod around. But don't go handheld if you can avoid it. And I know that's another thing that kids like to do a lot. They don't want to put it on a tripod. Well, this shot is a great shot, except for the fact that you can't use it because it's wiggling nonstop. We have equilibrium in our eyes. You know? You can walk and talk to somebody and you don't see them jumping up and down. You don't see people bobbing back and forth when you have conversations. You don't notice it. Does it happen? Yes, it really does happen. This is why, most of us don't throw up on a ship, right? Or a train or an airplane, which is constantly moving and bouncing, right? There's a fallacy that people say, oh, I want to make it look so real. I'm going to go handheld. That doesn't look real at all. Because in reality, I don't see all of you bouncing around. I look down at them, I don't see it waving back and forth. That's not real. It's the opposite of real. It looks like home video. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit, compare and contrast being on a tripod versus a lot of kids nowadays want to use those stabilizers, right? The gimbals, right?
Right.
Can you give us a little insight on when is one better than another?
Yeah, sure. For instance, we just did we did like 17 setups yesterday for Shark Tank. They have a new judge, so we had to go to his penthouse apartment. Oh my God, this guy's rich. In New York City, and then his office and people working in his office. Every single shot was on a tripod. Him walking up, people walking through, him getting up and talking to somebody. We put it on a slider. Not a single shot on the gimbal. Not a single shot on the gimbal. The camera he was panning and tilting. Pan and tilt with a camera. Why? Because, again, if you're on a gimbal or you're on a Steadicam, and I know a lot of Steadicam operators, Steadicams are great for running down a hallway, going upstairs, coming downstairs. That's what a gimbal is for. Anything other than that, other than what we call the walk and talk. Have you seen Law and Order? Famous for the walk and talk. They could do 2 pages in one shot. Just have a Steadicam walk backwards with 2 people walking down a hallway, yelling at each other. They did it in Scrubs, and they did it in every hospital show there is, right? And every cop show, right? So, and it's done as a way for the producers and the directors to knock out more pages in one day shooting. It's not done for art. It's done to get it over with. And there's a choice you have to make when you're professional as to how much time are you going to spend on this scene and how much time are you going to spend on that scene. Because time is always your enemy. So there are times that a Steadicam is going to make things go faster, and there are times a Steadicam is going to make things go much, much slower. because a Steadicam and a gimbal yaw. Right? You all noticed that, right? It's like you're on a ship. And you're not going to get a steady motion. You're going to, unless you practice over and over and over again. And you're not going to get it to stop exactly where you want it to unless you practice over and over and over again. One of the best Steadicam operators in the world, Jack Churchill, said that, when I come on a shoot, I always ask him, if I'm going upstairs, great. Downstairs, I charge you less. He said, down a hallway, great, no problem. Two people talking, he says, oh man, sure you don't want to do this on a dolly? I mean, this Steadicam operator saying, I'll do it. It's going to take you a lot longer to get it because it's a Steadicam. Steadicam balances out the weight. Have you all seen what a Steadicam is? Huge rig that goes on your shoulder and you hold it, and then when you stop, it keeps going. Right? Now, the little gimbals don't do that, but they still gyrate, they still move, right? So, is it helpful? It's great for running downstairs and running upstairs and running down a hallway and around a corner, or you want to follow somebody getting into a car, follow someone coming out of a car. Those are great. Use it for what it's made for, things you can't get with a tripod. Don't use it for things you can do with a tripod. Dollies are really good. Probably most schools can't afford them, but dollies, allow you to move the camera and dolly in and dolly out with a nice smooth motion. And we use them on feature films and TV shows all the time. It's very common. Yep. Yes. The difference between working on a reality show is while we can rehearse them walking down the stairs, we can't change, their office. We got 30 people in the office all on computers working. He's going to walk in and say hello to somebody. They're working. It's a real office, so we can't redecorate it. We can't, and also we can't interrupt them for more than like 5 minutes because they got work to do. They got a business to run. So we put a light back there and a light over here. And I apologize to the lady. Put one light on her desk, putting up into her face because I'm going to turn it way down so it looks like just the light from the computer. And he walks over and he says hi to her and he walks away. And we get that shot and we're out of there, right? And it's like, how many different shots can we get that they can use as what's called B-roll? You know what B-roll is? Yeah. Cool. So we're getting B-roll because they do the interview with him for like a half hour, and now we have to have all the B-roll of him and his company and all the people in his company and a shot of the lobby and pan over, somebody walks down the hall and all that kind of stuff, right? So it can be creative. Jeff was the cameraman. He was a really good cameraman. He knows how to knock these things out, but he also comes from the world of dramatic television as well. And as he said to me at the end of the shoot, he says, man, I hate these damn reality things. I said, how long have you been on Shank Tag? He says, 10 years. He's been shooting for 10 years, and he still says, I hate reality. But he doesn't really hate reality. What he hates is that 2/3 of the day through, they start changing the shots to get it over with. Because the guy's got to leave. He's got to get on a helicopter to Hamptons by 3:30. It's like, oh, jeez. Now we got to get this shot and this shot. Okay, that's gone. That shot's gone. We can't do the shot the way we're going to do it. These people are multimillionaires. Yeah, they're very nice, but of course they couldn't afford to be. But still, you have to work around their schedule. But again, we're doing creative shots. We're trying to get interesting shots. You can cross the 180-degree line if you do it on camera, right? But you have to have a good script supervisor who, as you pointed out, is the person that keeps track of the lines, right? What a script supervisor is also doing is watching the monitor and says, all right, on this line we crossed screen direction, so every line after that, all the shots have to be reversed screen direction. I can't use, if you did the whole scene from here, but then later you did one shot like this, the editors have to know when they cannot use any more of the stuff that was shot from here, right? Because you just changed screen direction.
What would be the motivation to do that?
You'll see that all the time in card games, gambling. Like, they're looking at their palm of their hand, they put the cards down, and it's really his scene. He doesn't know if she's bluffing or not. Is she bluffing? He starts sweating. And then we can also go right back again, right? So, and for the director and the cinematographer and the script supervisor, when do we go back, right? If the director says, go back and come back again, but don't do a single line, then you can cut this move out at any time in the edit. You don't need it, right?
That can be also used to show like power.
Sure. We do that with dollies all the time because dollies have a hydraulic piston in them, and we can boom. So let's say that she just said something to him and he gets really mad and he starts getting madder and madder and then he stands up and yells at her. And look, we have now changed, right? We were looking down on him and now he stands up and we're looking up at him. In the movie Heat of the Night, excellent, excellent movie, starring Sidney Poitier and Rod Steiger. It's about a small southern town. And Sidney Poitier is, the richest guy in town has been murdered. They find his body in the street in the middle of the night, and one of the cops driving around finds Sidney Poitier waiting for a train, and it's midnight, and he takes him in to the chief. And the first thing the chief does as the chief is hitting a radio. And the shot is like this, and there's a big thing of guns behind him. And then it looks down on Sidney Poitier, who's standing, going, stand up, you're going to be Sidney Poitier. Right? And it looks down on Sidney Poitier, who's standing, even though he's standing, and it's looking up at Rod Steiger, even though he's sitting. And he's saying, what did you kill him with? What did you kill him with? And then it changes when Sidney Poitier says, I'm a cop. And then what happens is he stands up and the camera looks even at both of them. And then Rod Steiger, the chef, sits down again and the camera stays up. Because Sidney Poitier says, what do you do up in Philadelphia? And he goes, I'm a police officer, homicide. And he throws the badge down. And the camera goes down to the badge. And then the camera goes down to him. And it's like, the dynamics have totally changed. We were shooting down on Sidney Poitier, up on the sheriff. Then sheriff sits down. We're shooting down on the sheriff and up on Sidney Poitier, right? Because it's totally changed. I'm a homicide detective. And then, of course, he goes, can you stay and help us solve this crime? Which is what that movie's all about. So it's a really great movie about race relations in the South in the 60s, but also about two police officers coming to terms with each other, right? And it's great.
So when you cross the 180 line, would it be smart to use that for transition?
Yes, you can use the one crossing the 180 line as a transition. But if I'm going to be using it like this, and like sit down, and I'm going to cross as she gets pissed off, and she pissed off and she leaves, go ahead, leave. The problem is the doorway is on the wrong side of him, right? We had the doorway on this side at the beginning. We want to keep that, we don't want the audience to be that, unless you want the audience to be that off balance. There are times that you will trash the 180-degree line so that you can irritate the audience. If you switch the 180-degree line, you will subliminally irritate the audience. And there are people who won't understand why they're getting irritated at this scene, but they will be. It's a subliminal thing that'll happen, whether you want it to or not. Same thing with shooting up and shooting down on people. Whether you want it to say that or not, it will say that. The reason is because, you can come back now. The reason is because when we're little kids, everybody's taller than us. And we depend on them for safety, for food, for everything, right? And we look up. We physically look up. And when you're an adult, and you're taking care of a child, you're physically, or a pet, you're physically looking down. So whoever is below eye line is inferior. Whoever is above eye line is superior. And this is international, multicultural. You can't get around it. It's human. So maybe dogs and cats don't think the same way, but we're not making movies for them, right? But for all other people, that is something that you're going to say to them. Just like you're going to be saying to them that this is her point of view and not his point of view, no matter what. Once we shoot a scene like this, we're going to think about whatever he says, we're going to think, how is she reacting to it? We're not going to think about how is he feeling. This, we're going to think about how is he feeling. And that's going to happen whether you want it to or not to your audience. So be aware of using these things to your advantage. Beware of doing it deliberately. Everything in a movie, every shot is planned out. When I do this is another good shot. Put your hands up now. She's not wriggling and he is. Right? So think about interesting angles you can do things from. How can you change the angle? How can you get a more interesting shot? Another interesting shot might be, do that with your hands. Okay, bring them up a lot. Bring your hands over this way more. There you go. There we go. Right? Choreograph it. Move things to the camera. Do not allow where the actors are to dictate where you are doing things. Make everything to the lens. Choreograph the motions to the lens, choreograph the people to the lens, move the furniture, move the background. As a DP, one of my biggest things that I spent a lot of time doing is telling the art department where to move the background. Once we set up the shot and we know how things are, we go, can you move the curtain out and move this way, bring that furniture in, lower that painting, get rid of that book. Can you have a blue book you can put back there? We spent a lot of time doing that. And that's the set decorator that's moving all of that stuff in the back. That's part of the art department. So as a cinematographer, I have to deal a lot with the art department because I'm creating the look. I'm creating what's on the screen. I'm doing the lighting. I'm doing the camera composition. We put a light out there to light him as he walks in the door and light her as she walks out the door, right? We have this cross-key lighting. We're shooting into the shadow sides of the face. And the reason why we don't want to cross is because we now shoot into the bright side, the key side, which we don't want to do. We want to shoot into the shadow side, the fill side of the face, because that adds three-dimensionality to the image. We don't want to put the light where the lens is, we want to put the light away from the lens, right? So that's a very standard lighting thing. And you'll see that in every TV show, movie, feature film, commercial, everything. Questions? Anything? Yep. Sure. Tremendously. And, you know, I was at the American Cinematography Society's awards for the best cinematography of the year that Emmanuel won for Birdman. And they said, they gave the award. And this goes to Emmanuel for Birdman, who took 3 months to shoot one shot. Right? Because it's all one shot. But it took 3 months. That's 5 days a week, 12 hours a day, for 3 months. That's how long it took to shoot that movie. So don't think because it looks like it's all one shot, it's all one shot, right? First off, they go in and out of darkness, they go behind somebody's back. That's where they can change the reel. That's where they can redo it. Did you see in 1917? Incredible, right? Like 7 camera operators. They're just handing this thing off to one person or another, going into here and going in around the corner and go behind somebody's back, and then somebody screws up. Shit, we got to go back. Remnant, the same thing. He was like, oh no, he tripped. The whole day's gone. Because we can only shoot at sunrise and sunset, because that's the only thing that's going to match, right?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was going to ask, I'm a big fan of the show Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
I love Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah, and they do a lot of those appear to be single take, long movies,
Right.
intricate sets. Is that really all one take, or is it trickery, and why do you think they do that in that show?
They're doing it because they want to maintain the comedy performance of her. Like, especially if you do dance. I haven't seen, I haven't seen the movie Moulin Rouge. All right? Now, compare that movie to anything with Gene Kelly, like Singing in the Rain. And you will then turn around and say Moulin Rouge is one of the worst musicals ever made. The reason being, it cuts all the time on the dance sequences. And Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire both had in their contracts that at no point are they allowed to cut during a dance. And also, it has to be full frame, body, head to toe. You had to see the dance. Because, as in Moulin Rouge, you can have anybody do this for 2 seconds, and it'll look like they're dancing. And they're not. Those people really, they had a lot of Broadway dancers in that show, but there were a lot of people that couldn't dance in that thing, right? That's why in comedies sometimes they will do longer takes so that they can maintain the energy of the comedy banter back and forth between the characters. Because she's having that with her father back and forth and back and forth. And the timing of the comedy, the editor can screw that up if it's just close up, close up, close up, close up, right? They may not hit the beats, right? But if you do it as one Steadicam shot where she comes through and into the kitchen and she does that line with mom and dad, mom, dad, mom, and then she goes back out and we cut, right? You've got it. You got the comedy because they know the balance. So David Mullen, who shoots that show, always has that fine line of when do I basically go, quote, sitcom, which is those shots, and when do I go artistic? Which are shots like when she's at the comedy club. I can go behind the people's faces. I can come up. I can come around the corner. I can go behind her. I can do all these wonderful things because it's really one-liners. And there's no timing I have to worry about with somebody else responding. They can cut in the laughter whenever they want. But when I have the 3 of them in the kitchen, I was just watching one great scene, the 3 of them in the kitchen. I mean, it's hilarious, that fast banter, right? And while the 1940s movies were good at it, the screwball comedies of cutting back and forth, getting it in. Modern editors are not the editors that they were in the 1940s, right? And they can screw it up. And also, a good director knows if their actors have got it, they don't want anything to screw that up. They don't want a chance of ruining it in the edit, right? So when you have to do it at one take, that's the kind of thing you have to do in one take. Do you have to do an anger scene, an argument in one take? No, you don't. Do you need to do a fight scene in one take? You better not. Because they can't actually punch each other. It's all stage combat. So those things are done with multiple takes and multiple angles, right? But if you're going to do something, comedy is going to have things like that. And also, how many of you have ever seen Bourne Identity? So if you're going to have a good chase scene, somebody going down a hill and running around a corner and down, that you're going to want a Steadicam for, maybe. You can still, with a lot of edits, cut better. And if you watch Bourne Identity, if you watch the scene where they drive the Mini Cooper, there's like 300 cuts in there, in like 1 minute. It's like so many different cuts, And that's what gives it that action and that pace. And getting all the coverage you need. So does that all make sense? Any other questions? I think we're running out of time. Do we still have time?
You've got 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Cool. Questions? What? Primer zoom lens, good question. There's no problem with shooting with a zoom lens, and there's no problem with shooting with a prime lens. The difference is that prime lenses make you have to plan things out more. The zoom lens gives you the ability to add slight motions. I can do a slow creep zoom in on him as he gets more and more frustrated. And that's a creep zoom. And a creep zoom is going to be something that you're going to want to do slowly, almost unnoticeably. How many of you have ever seen the TV show The Crown? Right? Creep zooms all the time in The Crown. They're always doing creep zooms in and creep zooms out. Another place that do a lot of creep zooms and beautiful Steadicam work, by the way, is Downton Abbey. If any of you have ever seen Downton Abbey, one of the most beautifully shot shows on television. And so creatively done that they constantly have dolly work and Steadicam, but they have a lot of dolly work in there. And people get confused, think it's all Steadicam, and it's not. Most of it's dolly work. Steadicam's used for the long chase when they're walking through all the hallways. Usually the opening of the season, they do this extremely long Steadicam shot. And then after that, they're doing dolly shots, just slow moves. You know, it's very hard to do a slow move with a Steadicam or a gimbal. You can try, but it's not really going to be a smooth move. You cannot move your hands at a smooth rate, just like you can't hold a camera. This is better than a small handheld camera because this has got more weight. And this is why we put it on our shoulders, because then I can do a shot which is going to have a lot more steadiness than if I'm trying to do it by my hands. But even that's bouncy, right? So think about what's going on in your frame and match it. If it's an action scene, someone's running, you can do handheld because they're running, it's moving, the camera can move, right? If they're sitting still, don't do handheld. You know, it's going to look like crap, right? You want them to concentrate on the words and not on is their shoulder going out of frame or why is it wiggling? And don't think that the audience isn't going to notice that it's wiggling. They're always going to notice that it's wiggling. And they will always be distracted. They will try to pay attention, but they will be distracted. And this is the reason why we use tripods. That's why they were invented. And they just invented new ones that are even better and cost $4,000. So it's like, I'm not going to buy one, but it's this incredible tripod that weighs like nothing. You can pick it up and it's incredible. But it's like the newest technology. But as far as prime lenses, I shoot most of my features in primes, but that's just because the primes that I have are really good, and the zoom lens we have is pretty not so good. Yeah. To get a good zoom lens on a professional camera, you're talking at least $50,000. The better ones are about $80,000. Not many people can afford that. You know, good prime lenses that we own at the college, we have a set of Cook lenses. One lens is $10,000. And the Zeiss lenses, one lens is $6,000. So, you know, when I first bought them, we got a grant and we bought them, and the insurance department said, "You're not letting students take these." I said, "Of course. What are they for?" You know, of course we are. She said, "But that one case, that's $40,000. I said, "Yep." They're carrying out a case worth $40,000. That's why they can't leave it in the car. It's got to go with them to the restroom. Right? But yeah, we have some very high tech, high professional gear. We have 4 Alexa cameras and all of that kind of stuff. So at Fairleigh Dickinson. Any other questions? Nobody? Yeah, I hope this inspires you to figure out how to be more cinematic with your photography. Don't be lazy. Don't shoot it from eye level. One of my assignments in cinematography classes, I do make my students go out and shoot one scene, and they're not allowed to have a single shot from eye level. Everything has to be above or below, or floor, or handheld, or from shoulder mount, but not eye level. Never eye level, right? Think about that. How can you and think about serving the editor. It is your job as a camera person and a director to serve the editor. Script supervisors, my friend Tony Patini is the top script supervisor in the country. They actually flew him out to California to do the first episode of Westworld and everything. He did Persons of Interest for several years. And he said, my job is to make sure the director doesn't look like a fool when they get to the editing room. It's my job is to keep saying to him, did you get this close-up? Do you want that as a close-up? Did you get this as an over-shoulder? You know, and the director, good directors are so dependent on their script supervisors. They will not move on to the next scene until they get an okay from the script supervisor. They will turn to them and say, did I get everything? Because, you know, they're dealing with the actors. They're dealing with the costumes. They're dealing with everything else. They got so much stuff in their head. They need the assistance of the DP and the assistant director and the script supervisor. They need all these people to make sure that everything gets done, right? And I've been on sets where directors turning to constantly to the assistant director, do we have more time? Do we have more time? Because I got to get one more. And she's looking at her watch going, I'll give you 5 minutes here, but that means you got to do one last shot over at the next set, right? You know, there's these negotiations that are going on. They're hilarious. I was on one TV commercial. This was a great one. We were shooting outside in Manhattan. We were going in like 4 streets over, only 4 streets over. And the AD walks up to the DP and she says, I know we have a company move, so that's a half hour. How much time do you need after we get there? He goes, an hour and a half. She says, I can't give you an hour and a half. 45 minutes, an hour and a half. 45 minutes, an hour and a half. An hour and 20 minutes. An hour and 20 minutes. And she goes, all right, an hour and 15. He says, deal. And they shake. And then as she walks away, he turns to, I'm one of the electricians, and we're starting to load the truck, and I look at him, and he goes, it's only going to take us 45 minutes. Said, but it's better to have more time than less, right? And so you have these kind of conversations going, and then she goes over to the director and says, okay, it's going to be an hour and a half. Remember, she just said an hour and 15. You have an hour and a half before you have to do the next shot. So there's this whole game that gets played, but it's all not, you know, it's up to her to make the day. And we call that making the day. And it's really on top of her. And she will hear from the producer if she doesn't make the day. So, cool. Anything else? Time. Thank you all.